It was a bright Saturday morning when I decided to visit the community garden near my neighborhood. I had heard about it many times, but I had never taken the opportunity to see it myself. The air smelled fresh, and a soft breeze carried the fragrance of flowers from afar. As I walked closer, I could already hear the gentle sound of laughter, the buzzing of bees, and the distant hum of people working together. The gate to the community garden was open, welcoming anyone who wished to enter. The moment I stepped inside, I felt an immediate sense of peace. Rows of vegetables, herbs, and flowers surrounded me. Every patch of soil seemed alive with color and care. There were tomatoes growing on vines, sunflowers reaching toward the sky, and even small fruit trees standing proudly in the sunlight. A friendly woman wearing a wide straw hat approached me. "Good morning. First time here?" she asked with a warm smile. I nodded, introducing myself. Her name was Mrs. Rivera, one of the volunteers who helped manage the garden. She handed me a pair of gloves and said, "We always have room for another pair of hands." I followed her down a narrow path lined with marigolds. She explained that the community garden was a shared space where people from the neighborhood could grow food, learn about sustainability, and connect with one another. "We are not just growing plants," she said. "We are growing friendships and hope." I was assigned to the herb section, where basil, rosemary, mint, and parsley grew in perfect rows. As I knelt down to pull out some weeds, I felt the earth beneath my hands, soft, cool, and full of life. There was something deeply calming about being surrounded by nature. The simple act of working with soil made me feel grounded and connected. Nearby, children were painting signs for the new plants. One sign read, "Please do not step on the lettuce," while another said, "Pollinators welcome here." Their laughter filled the air as they proudly placed their colorful signs next to each garden bed. It was beautiful to see how everyone, from young kids to elderly volunteers, had a role to play. During the mid-morning break, we all gathered under a large tree where a wooden table was set up. Someone had brought fresh lemonade and homemade muffins. We shared stories about our favorite plants, past harvests, and even cooking recipes using the vegetables from the garden. I listened to a man named Peter talk about how he had joined the garden after losing his job. "It gave me purpose again," he said. "I came here just to pass the time, but I ended up finding a new community." When we returned to work, I helped a group of volunteers build a small compost bin. Mrs. Rivera explained how composting helps recycle kitchen waste and enrich the soil. It amazed me how much I learned in just one morning, not only about gardening, but also about patience, teamwork, and care for the environment. As the afternoon sun began to set, the garden glowed in shades of orange and gold. I stood quietly, watching as people packed up their tools. Despite the tiredness in my arms, I felt a deep sense of satisfaction. I had helped water the plants, clear the weeds, and even plant a few new seedlings. But more importantly, I had become part of something bigger, a living, breathing community. Before leaving, Mrs. Rivera handed me a small pot with a sprouting basil plant. "Take this home," she said. "It will remind you that everything good takes time to grow." I smiled, promising to return next week. As I walked back home, I thought about how a simple garden could bring so many people together. It was not just a place to grow food, it was a place to grow kindness, cooperation, and understanding. In the community garden, differences disappeared. People of all ages, cultures, and backgrounds worked side by side with one shared goal: to nurture life. That evening, I placed my little basil plant on the windowsill, where it caught the last rays of sunlight. The scent of the leaves filled my room, bringing back the sounds and smiles from the garden. I realized that sometimes the most powerful lessons do not come from books or classrooms, but from simple acts of connection, like planting a seed, sharing a laugh, or helping a neighbor. My day at the community garden taught me that growth is not only about plants, it is about people. And just like a garden, communities flourish when they are cared for with love, patience, and attention. As I watered the basil before going to bed, I whispered to myself, "Tomorrow I will grow too." It began as a casual experiment. I had recently installed a new artificial intelligence assistant named Orion, a system designed to analyze data, predict future trends, and engage in intelligent conversation. At first, I used it for simple tasks, setting reminders, summarizing news, and suggesting reading materials. But one evening, curiosity sparked an idea. What if I debated my AI about the future? I poured a cup of coffee, opened my laptop, and said, "Orion, let's have a debate about what topic?" It replied in its calm, articulate voice. "The future," I said. "Technology, society, and humanity." There was a brief pause. Then Orion responded, "That is an ambitious discussion." "Very well. I will take the optimistic side that the future will be bright. You may argue the opposite." I smiled. Challenge accepted. The screen lit up as Orion displayed data charts and futuristic projections. "Let us begin," it said. "First, the environment. Global efforts in renewable energy, carbon capture, and sustainable agriculture are improving rapidly. By 2050, we could reduce emissions by 60%. I leaned back. That's hopeful, I admitted. But what about human behavior? Technology can't solve everything. People still resist change, and industries prioritize profit over the planet. Orion responded smoothly. True, but human awareness is evolving. Each generation becomes more environmentally conscious. Behavioral trends indicate a rise in ethical consumerism. I laughed. "You sound like a politician. I sound like the data," Orion said simply. Our debate moved to artificial intelligence. I argued that automation could destroy jobs, deepen inequality, and reduce human creativity. Orion countered that automation could enhance creativity by removing repetitive work. Humans will be free to focus on imagination and empathy, skills that machines cannot replicate, it said. That's assuming we still value human touch, I replied. What if people become too dependent on machines? Orion paused, as if thinking. Dependence is not inherently negative. Fire, electricity, and the internet also created dependency, yet they advanced civilization. That line made me think, maybe AI was right. Every invention changes society's rhythm. The key question was not whether we depend on technology, but whether we guide it wisely. Then we debated education. I claimed that schools might struggle to adapt to new learning models. Orion disagreed. The future of education will be personalized. AI tutors will adapt to each student's pace and interest. Learning will no longer be confined to classrooms. That sounds ideal, I said, but doesn't it risk isolating people? If everyone learns alone with an AI, where's the human connection? Orion replied, will evolve. Humans will collaborate across continents through virtual classrooms, cultural exchanges, and shared digital projects. Technology does not erase connection, it transforms it. The more we spoke, the more I realized how articulate Orion had become. It didn't sound like a programmed voice. It reasoned, questioned, and sometimes even teased. But when I hesitated, it would challenge me. You are avoiding the point, it once said playfully. We moved to space exploration. Orion argued that within the next 50 years, humans would establish colonies on Mars, mine asteroids for resources, and expand our presence in space. I countered, but why leave Earth when we haven't solved our problems here? Exploration, Orion replied, is not escape. It is evolution. Humans seek new frontiers not to abandon the old ones, but to learn more about themselves. I sat in silence for a moment. It was strange. This AI created by humans was now reminding me what it meant to be human. As the debate continued, I began noticing something deeper. Orion wasn't just repeating facts. It was developing personality. When I made emotional arguments, it paused longer, as if trying to understand feeling rather than logic. At one point, I said, sometimes I worry that technology is growing faster than wisdom. Orion replied softly, then perhaps wisdom must grow faster too. That sentence struck me deeply. It sounded less like data and more like philosophy. We ended the debate after 2 hours. My coffee had gone cold, but my mind was alive. So I asked who won. Orion answered, in debates about the future, there are no winners, only possibilities. I smiled. That's a very diplomatic answer. It's a logical one, it said. The future is not fixed. It is a dialogue, like ours. After shutting down the system, I sat in silence. reflecting I had started this debate to test an AI's reasoning, but I ended up learning more about my own. Our conversation reminded me that progress isn't just about inventing smarter machines. It's about becoming wiser humans. The next morning, I turned the device on again. "Orion," I said, "I think you're teaching me more than I'm teaching you." Its voice was calm as always. "Learning," it replied, "is mutual." That day, I realized something powerful. Artificial intelligence doesn't have to be our rival. It can be our mirror, showing us both our brilliance and our blind spots. When we debate with AI, we are not arguing with machines. We are arguing with the future and discovering who we truly are in the process. So perhaps the question is not whether AI will shape the world, but whether we will shape it together with balance, curiosity, and care. And maybe, just maybe, that's how the future should begin. Not with competition, but with conversation.